Hey friends, have you thought to yourself recently, you know what, I'm cured. Can I just start drinking again? I've thought this before a few times. I've heard many people think this and say this before as well. And I know there's going to be a lot of you watching this video who are currently thinking this and wondering this yourself. Is that even possible? Can you be cured? Can you drink like a normal person? Can you just grow out of like binge drinking, risky drinking, an alcohol use disorder? Can you just grow out of it? Or can enough time pass and enough therapy pass that you're able to drink like a normal person? Like, is that a thing? Well, let's discuss. So first, there's no harm in waiting. If you have those thoughts, don't do it right away. Just keep thinking. Think about it. Which is probably why you're watching this video, because you haven't done it yet, you're just thinking about it. You want to hear other people's opinions. Well, here's mine. So maybe you have a moderation strategy already in mind. You've had X amount of months or years off from drinking, and you're like, you know what? If I only drink beer, or if I only drink on the weekends, or if I only allow myself 2 drinks per sitting, no more than 2 nights a week, surely I can stick to that schedule. Like I'm not a wild animal. Surely I can moderate like that, right? Are you starting to think that way? And sure, there are people who would be able to do that. I've seen it. But if you have an alcohol use disorder, which if you're not sure, you can watch my video on the different levels of alcohol use, how it's a spectrum. You know, everything is a spectrum. It's not you're an alcoholic or you're not an alcoholic. There's a spectrum. And alcohol use disorder is the highest on the spectrum. So if you were someone living with alcohol use disorder and then you quit drinking for a long time, the primary consensus is that you will never be able to drink in moderation or drink like a normal person ever again, because once alcohol enters your body, the craving switch will get switched on, and it's only a matter of time that you're back right to where you were before you quit drinking when it got bad. And my opinion on that, I would lean towards yes, that's true, but of course, anything is possible. But in my experience, in my own life, I haven't relapsed, so not me personally. When I quit drinking 8 years ago, I haven't looked back. Who knows about the future? But I've talked to hundreds, thousands of people in recovery, in different levels of recovery, and I've seen this play out, and I've seen it usually end in them realizing that they can't moderate. They thought they could. They did a really good run. I've heard of people even attempting to use like a timed safe where every day at 5 o'clock the safe unlocks so you're able to access to pull out 1 beer, and that works fine for a long time. But eventually, for some people, it goes right back to how it used to be, and moderation isn't possible. Complete abstinence is really the only way that a lot of people are able to navigate in the world. So those are people living with alcohol use disorder. So what about the people whose drinking use was categorized in the low risk or risky or even problematic zones of the alcohol use spectrum? What about those people? Are they able to take time off of drinking and then go back to it, but with a much more healthier approach? Yes, I've seen that too. But of course, it would depend on lots of things. It would depend on, in that time period where that person wasn't drinking, you know, did they work on themselves? That could either be through therapy or through self-help books or through listening to podcasts or journaling. That could look in many different ways. So did they work on themselves? You know, did they become more self-aware and try to understand their behaviors and their thoughts and try to understand what triggers them and what makes them want to drink more than they should, and all that kind of stuff. So did that person do those things? Because they'd have a higher chance of being able to drink like a normal person if they understood themselves better and had more of a desire to be healthy in mind and body and spirit. And that usually looks like not getting drunk all the time. A lot of the times people who were living with alcohol use disordered and would be considered in the disordered zone of the alcohol use spectrum, like where I was and like a lot of you were or are, if you were to, and if I were to go back to drinking, eventually the drinking habits would go back to what I'm comfortable with, even though years have passed. I know that alcohol would gain control over my life again, and it would start to make decisions for me on my behalf. How nice of it. And then the cycle would start all over again, where I'd feel guilt and shame, and then I would drink to try to cope with the guilt and shame of drinking, and then it would just continue and spiral until I was like, you know what, oh my God, I can't drink, and then I would quit. And so many people are on that roller coaster for years, maybe they're even their whole lives, and they don't really know how to get off the roller coaster other than to completely quit drinking forever. When I put forever in air quotes, I really do mean forever, but you shouldn't say forever because it can be overwhelming. Also, another thing is if you quit drinking for a long period of time, your alcohol tolerance goes down. So then if you were to go back out and drink, then the effects of the alcohol would be intensified in your body. That's just science and biology. And with the intensified effects, that could have really bad consequences, like death. But like I've told people in my personal life, if they're curious that they can go back to drinking, or if they can tackle drinking, with a fresh new outlook and maybe a healthier approach, I say, well, one, how will you feel? Just imagine, just put yourself in that moment. Say you just want to try it and see if you think you can handle it. So, okay, imagine that you go to that tavern that you always go to and you order your drink and you just drank it. And sure, you're probably going to feel euphoric because that's what alcohol does to your body and your mind. But then how are you going to feel throughout the rest of the night? Do you feel like you're going to want to keep going and going and going because you missed it? How are you going to feel the next day? You're going to probably get a hangover because your body's not used to it, and your body would be detoxing the poison you just put in it. So just imagine how you would feel. Would you feel guilty? Would you feel like you lost your progress? Which, by the way, you wouldn't, in my opinion, lose progress from being sober, because when you're sober, you learn a lot about yourself, and it's a great accomplishment no matter how long it is. So don't feel like that's all for nothing if you do have a slip or a relapse. Just a little side note. So I would ask that. And often, they would think, well, I'd feel like crap and it wouldn't be very good. Which then I'm like, okay, well, is it really going to be that worth it? In my opinion, it's not worth it to give in. It's not worth it to me. And it's not worth it to a lot of people once you really think about it and play the tape forward, as they say. And then another thing I would say is, okay, well, you think you can moderate and maybe drink at a healthier, that's such an oxymoron. You can't anyway, that you can drink in a healthier way. Okay, well, give it a shot. See if you can. Really, isn't that what life is? Experimenting, seeing what works for you and what doesn't. I would say to do that, if the person really wanted to see. I said, well, find out for yourself. I know for me personally, no, it's not worth it. I will not find out for myself because I know how I am. I know that I can try to moderate. I know I wouldn't last a month. I would be, because that addict voice inside would be screaming and it would want more and more and more and more. And I would feed it more and more and more. No thank you to all that upheaval and all that extra energy spent for what? For what? It's not worth it. So there you have it. There is my opinion on I'm cured. Can I go back to drinking again? In my opinion, some can, some cannot. And if you think you can, try it, but don't try it because I think it's pointless, and living alcohol free is amazing, and drinking is, who cares? Who cares? You're much better off without it, for real. So thanks very much for watching, and remember that you can do hard things, you deserve happiness, and you are loved. I just washed my hair. Why does it look greasy? Moroccan oil.